Good evening, everyone. This is Josephine Selvakumar with the Department of Planning. I'm the Western Sector Planner, and we are here today for the Environment Focus Group meeting for our Buda Sustainable Community Area. And today is November 12th, and the time now was 7:35 p.m. I welcome you all to the meeting, and I know many of you were at the previous meeting for Quality of Life focus group meeting, and I know we are all tired. I will make it fast, and we are here to hear more from you. So the agenda here, first I would like to welcome everyone, the planning staff, the panelists, the community members, county representatives, and the advisory committee members. Thank you all for joining us today. I will then walk you through the focus group meetings which we had and which we are going to have and give you an overview of what we are going to talk about for the Environment Sustainable Group Focus Group meeting, and then give you a project kickoff feedback and talk about the survey results which we received, especially for the environment, and then open up for question and answers for you to give us your feedback catered towards environment for the Arbuda Sustainable Community Area. So moving on, these are the November meetings. We had transportation and economy last week, and we received very good feedback from the focus group meetings. And prior to the environment focus group meeting, we had the quality of life meeting. And next week, on the 18th, we have housing and local government support focus group meeting. So what are we going to talk about in environment? This is project mainly involving the natural environment, natural resources, and relationships to the natural environment, quality of land, watershed maintenance and preservation, tree canopies and green spaces. More trees is something you have talked about in the survey results, and stormwater management, sewer and water capacity, recycling, pet waste and organic waste programs, and environmental hazards, and parks and recreation. So from the project kickoff, we didn't hear a lot to environment, but we did hear some about more trees and green spaces. Strengths and weakness from the survey result, what we gathered is that the strengths are the proximity, closer to EMBC, Cadenceville, Ellicott City, Elk Ridge, and the highways, so that becomes walkable to many areas which are close by, and the quaint neighborhood, the charm town neighborhood, which the people like about, and they have also talked about how many years they have been in the community and what they all like about or the strengths in the community. Weaknesses were mainly focused on the business types, what is lacking and what they are trying to look, especially to mimic some of the businesses and from the Cadenceville downtown, Ellicott City Main Street, to have higher end stores, something similar to, and restaurants, something similar to Panera Bread, Trader's Joe, 818 Market, and few other restaurants and cafes and stores were pointed out to have more of those things. And there were also mentions of vacant stores, how to address it, what are the vacant stores, and how to attract more businesses. Lack of green space was brought about in other focus group meetings also, and also in the surveys. Crime and prevention, we talked about it in the previous focus group meeting. That was also noted in the survey, and flooding issues. So with the environment, we again there were 37 responses for the surveys and close to 32 to 33 for each focus group. The numbers didn't vary much. That's what we got for environment too. So mainly focusing on the environment, many have talked about more trees and greenery, especially along the East Drive and Southwestern Boulevard, and to maintain the existing trees and community garden, to have community gardens. With open space, there were mentions at the end of the Westland Boulevard and Linden Avenues, I guess that's owned by UMBC. They want to see that space being utilized, and I mean to have it as a great open space and not to have more developments and to have more open space. And Herbert Run was something which was brought up towards the end of the previous meeting for quality of life. So with the environment, community has talked about maintaining the Herbert Run watershed and how to maintain more, to add more native plants and to get rid of invasive species and to have some community space along the watershed, to have some nice open space and also to maintain the watershed. Stormwater infrastructure management was also mentioned, and also to maintain the Shelbourne Park. Rats is another, how to get rid of the rats were also a couple of comments from the survey. And again, no more developments, more green spaces and more open spaces, and how to keep the area clean, free of debris. So from what we discussed earlier, majority of the comments were to have more green spaces and to preserve the existing open space, stormwater management, streams, and environmental impacts. Herbert Run was mentioned over and over again. So those were the main comments for the environment that we looked into from the surveys which you took. So from the pointers discussed in the previous slides, we would just like to know areas that require more trees and where you would like to maintain the trees, and also to elaborate on watershed maintenance and stormwater management. Herbert Run was mentioned in most of the comments, but if you have more to add to that, these are some of the questions which we have where you can elaborate on. And if you haven't mentioned anything in the previous meetings or in the survey, and if you want to talk something about the environment, focused on strengths, weaknesses, challenges, and opportunities, now is the time to talk. And we have county representatives to take questions. So we are also here to take your feedback. So like I've been repeating in all the meetings, please punch your name on the chat box. And we have staff members to assist and navigate us reading your questions, and we will take it from there. That's all I got to say. So I can open up for the questions. So just type in your name, and I can leave this here for you to add more. So thank you. So I will open up for question and answers.
Thanks, Josephine. We have a comment from Tracy Leeser, so I will unmute Tracy.
Hi, thanks. This is Tracy. I don't think I made this comment in the survey, but we have a canopy initiative ongoing and received a flyer about trees that were available to us. And I noticed that all of the trees that were candidates for our yards were very large trees. And I feel that with the hills that we have in some of the areas of Arbutus and Halethorpe, it might have been a good idea to offer some small trees, for example, like a redbud or a dogwood, or something that would be able to fit on a slope, sloped area. So I just wanted to suggest for that first question, there are areas that require more trees, a small tree initiative, like the large tree initiative that's ongoing now. I think more takers might, go for a smaller tree and not one that's going to grow, 60, 80, 100 feet tall on a, very, very hilly yard, front yard, for example. So that was my suggestion about the areas that require more trees. Was that clear?
Thanks, Tracy. Yes, that
Okay.
was clear. That was clear. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so that I can see the chat box and see who's talking. And if need be, I can put the slides again. Yes, that was clear. Thanks, Tracy.
Okay, I'm going to unmute Sarah Hansen, who I think agrees on those previous comments.
Hi, I'm Sarah Hansen, and I'm sorry, for some reason my video isn't working tonight. I'm a staff member at UMBC, and I'm also the chair of the Landscape Stewardship Committee at UMBC, so this is an issue that I really care about. And one thing that I wanted to bring up is that at UMBC, we've been able to certify the campus as a wildlife habitat with the National Wildlife Federation. And even if Arbutus isn't necessarily interested in going through the certification process, which really is not very onerous at all, it could at least provide maybe a guide of some ideas of ways to make sure that the green spaces that, because it sounds like there's a really high demand for green space from the community, which I think is great, and to make those green spaces more wildlife friendly by using native plantings, making sure that there's places for wildlife to, raise young and have food and water. So maybe like a birdhouse project, or even just, different plants that provide berries and things like that. So just something to think about as folks are planning various green spaces, which sounds really exciting to me. And I'm also really glad to hear that the Herbert Run has come up a lot, because I was just in a professional staff Senate meeting today at UMBC, and somebody also brought that up, that in this meeting tonight should definitely be a topic, and that their understanding was that it had actually been like concreted over in some areas. And so maybe I don't know what kind of work it would take to like reveal that again, or if that's even possible. But that could be an opportunity for creating both green spaces for people and then also for animals.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for your comment. And I have experts from Rec and Park and Environment Sustainability and the county representatives. Feel free to jump in wherever you see you could add more to their points or answer their points. Thank you. I think Steve is talking something I can't hear.
I think Cheryl had a comment as well.
Steve, do you want me to unmute you?
No, I'm fine. I was just reading Pat McDougall's comment, and we've been looking at a lot of areas for community gardens. And I see Pat's comment that Gay Oaks Park could be potentially a candidate. We've been, with Rec and Parks has taken the lead on trying to develop some community garden opportunities in the southwest. And so I was just noting Pat's comment about that. And I think this does provide a next tier or next opportunity for us to really engage the community in creating some community garden opportunities.
Yeah, I just added that over to the chat, the comment that I had with Steve, because Rec and Parks has been working with Mr. Lafferty on a number of community gardens. A number of them are on the west side and some other communities. But it looks to me, and just sort of looking around at a number of the parks that are within the sustainable community area. Gay Oaks Park, it's kind of a quiet little park. A lot of folks don't know about it, but it's directly across from Arbutus Middle School Recreation Center. And looks like it actually has some space that would be sufficient for something like a community garden. I did notice that in one of the earlier comments in the presentation there. So that's always a possibility.
Josephine, I received a private comment from Tracy Leeser about stormwater management. So Tracy, I can unmute you now.
Great, thanks. Yes, I just spoke about the small trees. So that's me again. So that was an interesting comment about Herbert Run possibly being concreted over, because that was what I wanted to bring up. I think it would be very interesting to study and map sort of all of those underground waterways in the area in Arbutus. I walk along Sulphur Spring Road, sort of that stretch between the post office and downtown. And there is a stream there that is partly out, not culverted. And then it goes into a culvert. And it would be really nice to try to undo some of those culverts if there are more around the neighborhood, if it's possible, to allow for the stream banks to naturally vegetate. I think it is better for the possibility of flooding if you have the natural stream bank and not the culverted system. So again, that was interesting that it came up, because I was thinking about that to, again, go around and study all of these streams. I think it's not named Sulphur Spring Road for nothing. I think we have a lot of springs around in the area, and I think some of those water bodies that maybe come from the springs have, again, been forced into culverts, and just knowing where they are, I think would be good for the stormwater management, but also for the environment. I think studying undoing some of those culverts and allowing the stream banks to vegetate naturally would be something that would be worth looking into. So thank you for listening.
This is Sarah again.
Thanks,
I totally agree. I think, not only is it more beautiful, it also, creates habitat and filters the water. And you all are probably aware, if there's Baltimore County government folks on this call, I'm not sure who all is on the call, but I live in Catonsville over by the trolley trail, and the stream, we just had a recent stream restoration project happening there that was really exciting. So there is sort of a model in place for creating, native stream buffers and healthy streams.
Josephine, we have a comment from Cheryl Rydell, so I'll unmute you, Cheryl.
Yes, I'm really glad this has been brought up this evening. In looking over the whole area, I've been kind of looking at that because of this new planned development that's up on Maple Road at the Good Shepherd property up there. And it's come to light, a lot of talk about Herbert's Run and the runoff towards Patapsco River. I mean, we're in those two watersheds, and that all affects all this water that's everywhere. And of course, this seems to be a buzzword you hear anymore in the environment, is doing this runoff. I'd like to point out that when you look at in Relay, if you look at the latest development that was put in there, that Highgate, I really feel that that's an example of a development that I feel was done very well, where they put a lot of buffer zones. When you drive down into that development, there's a lot of buffer zones that, that has more of the bushes, the viburnums and things that would, get smaller wildlife like rabbits, squirrels, and that help for butterflies, birds, that type of thing, instead of just planting canopy trees. And I think that that is a commercial development that was done very well. When you're talking about like Herbert's Run and all these places, I just think if they could go back and put some of this, barrier type of growth in, and I guess it's a two-edged sword, because then you're having to maintain some of it. But I really think that this would help with the runoff, and it would also help the vegetation and the wildlife in the area. So I'm concerned when all this is going to happen up on Maple Avenue, that, you know, that where there's already problems on Ridge Road and all those areas, that how is that going to affect even down on Sulphur Spring Road or coming down into Arbutus or on Herbert's Run? So I think this is a very good time to be looking at that type of thing. And as far as having gardens and parks, when you go up on Elm Road, there's a wonderful open space that is up there. And then the park that you're talking about that's up by Arbutus Middle School. But I've noticed that there really isn't much playground equipment. So again, and I also feel that you could have some of this buffer zone plantings that could be put in those areas to encourage wildlife. And I don't know if, and also at the Hillthorpe Elementary School, it seems like there is a lot of room to put some type of buffer zones up there. And also maybe some more playground equipment to give a place for families to take their children up in that area too. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. Those are some valuable suggestions. Thank you.
We have a couple more comments in the chat box, but I was thinking maybe we should offer the panelists a time to speak if they would like to add anything at this point.
Hi, I'm Haley and I work for the Department of Environmental Protection in the Watershed Management section. And I just want to say to everyone that's talking about stream buffers and opening up culverts, those are really great. Opening up culverts are more involved, but stream buffers is a really great way to increase the flow and the increase the filtration of the stream water into streams to help filter out those pollutants and help Herbert Run. So it's really great to hear all that being said. And I also want to tell people about the Lower Patapsco Small Watershed Action Plan that was created in 2012 and is due to be revised soon. And that goes over a lot of the things that you guys are talking about. It looks at things like impervious surface and where things are planted and where they're not, and recommendations. So I can put that link in the chat for everyone to check out.
Thanks, Haley. That's helpful.
I just know from being in some recent community meetings in Hillthorpe that this runoff is an extreme issue with the people that live over there. And this Herbert's Run just keeps being brought up over and over again. So I wasn't even aware, and I'm sure they weren't either, that there is an action plan. So that would be very much appreciated.
Thank you. Any more questions?
We have some more questions in the chat box, so we can go to those now. I believe Sarah Hansen had another comment. So go ahead, Sarah.
I was just sort of responding to the conversation as it was going. Someone mentioned that it's maintenance, when you are doing buffers, and I just wanted to point out that if it's healthy native plants, once they get going, it shouldn't take a whole lot of maintenance unless you want a really manicured look. But if you're willing to have a more natural look, then it shouldn't be that much maintenance. And then someone was talking about playground equipment, which I think is a great idea to get more families out in green spaces. I also really like those, like the fitness trails where it's like, a walkway with different small pieces of equipment for people to just go for a walk and maybe do some chin-ups or whatever along the way, if you know what I'm talking about. I'm sorry if I'm talking way too much. I'm not sure if that's appropriate. I'm just a member of the community, trying to get some input, and this is something that I really care about.
That's nice. That's nice to hear all excited input. Thank you.
Well, I just want to say that I am an old hippie from way back in the 70s. Okay. And I was in horticulture and agriculture and farming back when it wasn't that great. And I just get so much pleasure when I hear people like you talking, young people talking about this, because I've just been waiting my whole life to have the younger generation really want to get involved in this. So just keep on talking, dear.
We are here and we want to make it happen. So whatever we can, however we can work together, that's awesome.
You can keep on talking until 8:30 p.m. Do you have any more questions in your chat box here?
There's nothing specific. Bettina Tebow mentioned pollinators. So yeah, I'll let Bettina talk about that.
Yeah, I don't know. When I start typing in, I get to a certain point and I look down and that's all that's left to send. So I was talking about rain gardens to try to mitigate some rain runoff, because as you go down towards Tom Day Boulevard between Carvel and Oregon, we have those steep slopes there that from 95. So I'm not sure who owns the land, but like in those little pockets right there, they would be the perfect place to have a rain garden, to have, to increase the natives, to do a pollinator garden, and it's the property that goes along with 95, but it's right next to the community. And that would be, perfect place to kind of fill in, like, see where 95 is, it crosses 695, and then where it turns white right there, that's the bridge that goes over the little white, the smaller white section. That's where it goes over Carvel and Oregon, and the elevation's quite high. So you have a lot of hilly area there, and you can see there's a lot of vegetation next to it. But if we were to, help clean that out a little bit and, make a nice rain garden.
Mm-hmm.
You're over Southwestern Boulevard right now.
It changes. It takes time to reload. Whenever I try to do.
Yeah, but if you look right where you're over Southwestern Boulevard, right to the left of that is two more white patches. That's where I'm talking about. Yep.
Okay.
Up there.
Oh, that I can go.
That is probably, this is Steve Lafferty, that's probably state-owned land. The state has a right-of-way or over all that area. So you would need to work with State Highway Administration, or we would have to work with State Highway Administration to figure out what's possible. Rain gardens probably aren't viable just because they wouldn't, especially on area that's got steeper grade, wouldn't capture enough of the water. Although there may be some other strategies to be used. Let me ask, is there flooding in that area coming off of the roads or nearby?
It can be, especially on I guess it would be the north side of 95. That's the side I see all the time. I'm sorry, not the north side. Let's go, yeah, I guess it is. On the side that faces Arbutus, not Halethorpe. Because we're on the Halethorpe side, because that's pretty much the line too between Arbutus and Halethorpe right there. 95 is for the most part.
Okay. All right.
So on the Halethorpe side, I can't speak to that as much as I can on the Arbutus side, because I go that way a lot and I see the Arbutus side of it.
Is there flooding there on normal times or with just heavy
with
Rain
heavy
events,
rain, and the ground gets really really soggy, and then we're fortunate in Arbutus that people cut beyond their grass, and they maintain it so that it doesn't get out of control. But if we could create an environment there, that would be good for the environment, and then take some work off of the neighbors that maybe they could find other community things to do. But that's like the perfect, I've spied that spot for about 5 years and thought, man, what could we plant there? How could we do something that was better there?
Well, actually, they probably shouldn't be cutting there, because you let the grasses grow rather than cut it down, it can absorb more. But
Right.
nonetheless, okay, just didn't know if there's any flooding in that specific area that needs to be addressed. So thank you.
It's soppy. I would say it's soppy.
I was trying to do a street view. My little guy is not moving to show you the street view. Okay, I will give up on the street view.
We have another comment in the chat box. This one's from Carolyn A. She says that some neighborhood folks wonder what plans there might be for the green space owned by UMBC. That is on the corner of Linden and Shelburne, and if there are opportunities for shared usage, like community garden, food co-op, health and wellness classes on the lawn, etc., or if these can become things that happen on the green space off Elm or Gay Oaks Park.
I remember seeing this comment with the survey results. I believe that parcel is owned by UMBC. So if anyone from UMBC is here to take the question, you can answer that.
I'm from UMBC, although that's not formally my role. I'm trying to imagine exactly where you're talking about. Can you pull that up on the map?
Yeah, if I read it right, is it at the intersection of Linden and Shelburne Avenue?
Was that over by the TRC?
I thought I was sharing my screen. Hold on a second. Okay. Okay, here is the UMBC circle. This is the Shelburne Road. I think she was talking about the intersection of Linden and Shelburne. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Bettina says that it's a place where everyone used to.
What's it?
It's where everybody used to park. It's the corner right there that when you come out of UMBC on Poplar, you're heading towards Arbutus, you're coming out Poplar. It's to the right. That whole strip of land.
This one? My hand is?
Yeah, see where you have the right. So it's on Shelburne on the right. That there. Yeah, you just had it right in there.
Yeah, this is the Poplar Avenue through where you come out of UMBC.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yep.
I don't know if there's specific plans for that area, but that's certainly something that I can take back. I have, I work with the grounds folks and the facilities management folks, so I can see because I know that UMBC is trying to do a lot to create like more no-mow zones and more pollinator areas and things like that. So yeah, is there a certain use you would like to see for that area that I could be advocating for?
I thought the neighbors along there were upset because UMBC was people were parking there, And I thought that land belonged to the Arbutus Methodist Church. And they were the one that, there's like a fence, I think, that goes along there now to try to keep the parking from happening there. But there was it was something involved with the Arbutus Methodist Church that they got involved in it because the neighbors all along Shelbourne there in that section didn't like those cars. But again, you know, so they may be the ones that need to be contacted. So you need to find out who really owns that strip of land. But I think some type of a garden or there would be really nice.
Josephine, I got a private message from Ryan Kmetz, who's a sustainability director at UMBC. So
hi, Ryan. I didn't know you were on this call. I feel like I should have let you do a lot of this talking.
Just a second. I was just trying to see. Ryan, go ahead. I was just trying to see from the GIS, but I can't open both the screen at the same time. It's freezing on me to see who owns that. But if Ryan is there, let me allow him to talk.
Hey, everybody. I'm Ryan Kmetz. I'm the Assistant Director of Sustainability, UMBC. That strip of grass, parcel, whatever you want to call it, was, I guess, purchased by UMBC. It predates me, I think, but we did get it from the church across the street. The fence was installed to help mitigate, for lack of a better term, illegal parking. Currently, UMBC is exploring different options for how to utilize the space. In our facilities master plan, which is on our website, if you go to fm.umbc.edu, the entire plan's there. It looks like a potential future use might be some sort of stormwater feature if UMBC were to continue expanding the land. Nothing is set in stone. A master plan is simply a 30,000-foot view and us trying to look into a crystal ball 10 years out. But as of right now, there's no plans to develop anything on that parcel. And I think any formal request from the community to use stuff, we'd be more than happy to entertain it and put it through the proper channels and stakeholders at the university.
Thanks, Ryan. Thank you.
Joe, we have some questions from Joby Taylor.
Okay. I will, Joby is unmuted.
Oh, I had just, hi, this is Joby. I'm at UMBC as well. I'm at the Shriver Center. Just a comment really that, you know, first to say that how much I've enjoyed seeing members of the community walk in the campus loop, and I love anything we can do to create crossover, connections. And the particular thing I was mentioning was, I know Arbutus Memorial Park is a very large green area, kind of in this zone. And as someone that lives in the city, I know there are a lot of historic African-American connections between the city and county there. So I'm just wondering if there are both green space as well as cultural and community kind of connections that might be opportunities there. It's a beautiful, I know that those kind of spaces can be places that people walk and connect. It also, I know from just neighbors that make the drive to Arbutus because they have loved ones that are they remember there, but just seems like a very large green space that could have potential for engagement of larger community in the area.
Thank you. Joe, do you have any more questions in your inbox?
Not right now. I guess if panelists have anything to add, now might be a good time.
Can I ask, the person that spoke about the smaller trees, what program was that through that you said there were only large trees on the list?
Joe, if you could unmute them.
That was Tracy who made the comment earlier.
Yeah.
My screen is frozen too.
Let me see. I can.
Oh, I can unmute myself actually.
Okay, great. Okay.
Great, thank you. I'm sorry that I don't remember, but we could certainly get with, Michael from the homeowners group, and one of our members coordinated that. So again, I'm sorry, but I could get back to you with that.
Halethorpe Improvement Association has a newsletter that you can access on the internet. And I think they have information on there about who coordinated the program and how they did it. So, that might be a way you could get to that quicker.
Yeah, I think Michael
McAuliffe.
Yeah, he is the association lead. He might be able to.
Yeah, they have a wonderful newsletter, and
yeah, they do.
She had, I can't remember the girl's name, but it's actually her boyfriend that works for the county government, and he spearheaded that effort over in Halethorpe. And she had mentioned the other night that they were going to do that over in Arbutus. But again, it was for, they called it larger specimen trees that were 8 feet tall trees that they brought. They were more or less, they wanted them to grow to canopy trees. But there may be another program that's available, so.
Yeah, I just shared the link to their website, but their newsletters are pretty good. Let me give you, let me put the email ID here in the chat box so you could reach
I was
out.
just curious because I was looking at, as we were talking, I was looking at the guidelines that we use in the forestry section, and it seems like they have red buds listed on there. So I guess this could be for a particular program. I know we had a big trees program. But I was wondering if you were going through a nonprofit, but it sounds like it's through the county government.
Yeah, it was the county government.
Okay, thank you.
This is Pat McDougall with Recreation and Parks. I was looking at GIS as we're sort of going along, and as comments are made by various citizens, and one of the areas that I think is a little interesting here is there are 5 individual floodplain properties owned by the county and assigned to Rec and Parks along Herbert Run on Leeds Avenue. It's between Ten Oaks Road and Elm Ridge Avenue. And the county's GIS shows that some of those are actually mowed, which may not be the best thing to do. To Mr. Lafferty's point, a lot of times when you are that close to a stream, it's better to not mow. But at the same time, sometimes spaces like that are used by the community for different activities. I know a similar circumstance up in Woodlawn, where like the edge of a road that's a nice wide grassy area is used for things like yard sales and things of that nature. I'm wondering if anybody that is on this call is familiar with those spaces and whether you have any thoughts as to what you would like to see there. Like, would you like to see that planted with trees? Would you like to see that considered for pollinator gardens? Rec and Park could certainly work with EPS, who Haley works with, and with Mr. Lafferty with the Sustainability Office on kind of maybe reinvigorating those or sort of just changing their use overall.
If I may interrupt here, I mean, to me, the absolute authority on Herbert's Run in that whole area is Michael McAuliffe with this Halethorpe Improvement Association. He walks that area from the beginning to the end with his friend. And he is of the mind that he always tries to get any type of trash and everything up from there. I think in a lot of his instance, a lot of these people don't know the type of grasses or vegetation that could be planted there. And I think he would be very, very, very open to someone talking to him. But he is the one that, I mean, he knows that area like the back of his hand. Okay. So he would be the person to get in touch with.
I'm surprised he's not in this meeting. Because
I heard that he has COVID. So, you know, I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Josephine, I'm going to unmute Tracy Leeser. She had a comment.
Oh, yes, thanks. I did have one more idea. I'm sorry if you've already discussed it, but in the median on Carville Avenue, I think it would be great to have someone walk that and look for any holes in the trees there. There's trees planted in the very middle of the median. And I think there's a few spaces where there may not be trees. And that would be a good candidate, especially even if you're talking about wanting to put in some of the larger trees because, you know, of being in the median there. So that's one idea, but also it would be nice to consider something else there along the median besides the grass. So possibly some low native grasses. I would like to see some shrubs that, you know, might attract birds or maybe larvae. But I think that is you know, the shrubs can be a security concern. But I think some short native grasses would be very nice there instead of the grass. So that was my other idea on the canopy. Thanks.
Thank you. I guess Bettina had a comment.
Yes, Bettina, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the strip that she's talking about, because the Greater Arbutus Business Association has been maintaining that grass as part of our Craig grant for as long as I can remember, 15, 20 years. It's kind of a gray area. Nobody, it used to be a right away for the rail car that ran down there back in the 50s. So, you know, it's usually the folks right along that strip on either side. They start the saplings over there. They kind of raise the trees, and it's kind of like a community thing. If they have one, you know, that dies, they get together and they remove it. So that's a nice section. And of course, Herbert's Run runs between the back of their house and Southwest Boulevard. So that's a very good key targeted area to get the environmentally conscious folks involved, because they're already actively participating in it and they're directly next to Herbert's Run. So I just wanted to speak to that section of property.
Thanks, Bettina. I was trying to pull that, but my screen is not cooperating. I'm sorry.
It's the same spot where we were talking about 95 going in.
Right.
It's the same exact spot. So that's a nice, and you know, you kind of have to be careful in that area and mindful also that that's also our parade route. Mm-hmm. So, you know, a lot of people utilize the shade trees and that hill. It's covered with families for the parades too. So we have to be conscious of that activity also.
Thank you. Any more questions? Pat, Steve, and Haley, if you want to add anything more, please do. Any new comments that weren't discussed at the feedback survey?
Did you get feedback on the items that were in your PowerPoint, the slides with the questions?
Yes, we did. Is there anything with the, I mean, I know we talked a lot about Herbertron, trees, more trees, maintaining trees, anything with the stormwater management?
I can add in something about stormwater management. I was looking at our GIS data. We usually do an analysis for the sustainable community applications where we look at how much stormwater treatment is in an area and how much impervious is treated by stormwater management. And that helps with filtering water and water quality in Herbert Run. So I didn't do this extremely detailed, but so don't quote me, but from what the data that I looked at, that I usually look at for applications, it looks like only about 18% of the Arbutus area that the Department of Planning has outlined is treated by stormwater. And you have a total of 34% impervious areas throughout the whole area. And then only 21% of the whole impervious area is actually treated by stormwater. So that's probably why you're seeing a lot of this flooding issues that you're seeing. And that's a serious concern for water quality. So you guys are all, you know, right on point with talking about greening everything up. That's going to help a lot. And it makes total sense for what you guys are seeing with the numbers that I'm looking at. So we're going to incorporate that all into the application like we normally do. So thanks for your comments.
Thanks, Haley.
Josephine, we had a comment in the chat box from Sarah asking, what are the next steps for this work? Will there be opportunities to further provide input on proposed specific projects?
So we are collecting feedback now through these individual focus group meetings, and you already gave input through these surveys. We have couple more focus group meetings next week. So we will put together all these results, and there would be a survey report on the hub where you could see the input for different focus groups for environmental quality of life and everything that we discussed. You could access to see what it is. And the next step is that we collect all these data and we work with different county agencies to get their input from what we heard so far, and then put together and submit the application to the state so that you get the designation and get access to all the funding to do all the wonderful things you are talking about.
And just to reiterate what Josephine said, once we collect all this sort of baseline information that we're getting from the advisory committees, these little small groups that we're meeting with now, we're going to use that to kind of put a rough draft together of what we've heard, and then we will kind of ask for input again on that. Whether it's through meetings or through some additional online survey tools or online mapping tools. It could be a mix of things, but there will be additional opportunities to provide input.
Great, thank you. You're welcome. And you'll be notified through the hub. So as we move on, as we post anything, we'll keep you in the loop so that you know what's the next steps.
I think that's it for comments, Josephine.
Yeah, I just have a couple more minutes. So if anything else, now's the time, or else I'll wrap up the meeting. It's almost 8:30. So I don't see any more comments in the chat box. So let's wrap up. Thank you all for being here and giving your valuable feedback. It's really helpful. So the next meetings, the two more focus groups that's left is housing and local government support, which is number 18. And I will send out the registration link tomorrow. It will all be posted in the hub, and the previous meetings were posted today. And these meetings, today's meetings will also be posted soon. And the survey report will also be posted soon so that you get an idea of the entire focus groups and the inputs and feedback. And we'll keep you all posted on the next step through our hub and emails. Thank you all. Thanks for your time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.